Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is my Forbes colleague, staff writer Justin Birnbaum. Justin, thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Brittany.
The Olympics are underway, and at the Olympics, thousands of athletes historically stay in the lodging known as Olympic Village. You're reporting USA Basketball is opting out with a really heavy price tag, but first, take us inside Olympic Village. What are the accommodations like?
Yeah, so like you said, I believe the number here this year is over 14,000 athletes are staying in the Olympic Village, and this is a common thing at the games. You know, they put them up in this kind of communal environment. I think the best way to think of it would be like a really nice kind of college dorm situation. You know, at the Olympic Village, you know, you share a room. You know, there are suites, common bathrooms. The kind of conditions have been all over social media, so you know it's not like we have to leave it to the imagination. I think the two things that have kind of stood out the most were the cardboard beds that a lot of Olympic athletes have pointed out. Also, the battle over air conditioning, because originally the Paris Olympics was set. They wanted to kind of make an effort to be environmentally conscious, and they weren't going to have air conditioning. And there was a battle that kind of went back and forth with a lot of athletes wanting to bring their own air conditioning units in. So it you know, from the outside looking in, it seems relatively nice. You know, beyond that, putting those things aside, and yeah.
I don't know what your college dorm room looked like, but mine certainly had air conditioning and a bed that wasn't made of cardboard. But has the U.S. basketball team always opted to stay out of Olympic Village? And what has their lodging looked like in previous years?
So this dates back to 1992, the first time the NBA sent its stars to the Olympics, and everybody will remember that as the Dream Team with Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson in Barcelona. So back then, having such high-profile athletes with them, they put them up with their own accommodations, luxury hotels. It's been that way ever since. There's been a few interesting outliers. For Athens 2004, they stayed on a cruise ship that was docked, and they did the same thing again for Rio de Janeiro in 2016, another cruise ship. So generally speaking, USA Basketball is putting up its players in some pretty nice accommodations for the Olympics.
So we know the price tag, or you're estimating the price tag rather, and we'll get to that in a second. But what is known about their accommodations this year?
So for this Paris Olympics, USA Basketball is staying in a hotel in the city center of Paris. They contracted for the entire hotel. I'm told it has about 800 rooms. It's unclear if they're going to use all 800, but they have the option to kind of give some back or move another sport with a similar lifestyle in, like golf, for example. At the Tokyo Olympics, shared a hotel with USA Basketball. And also, they're playing their group stage games in Lille, which is about 2 hours north. So they do have a 5-star hotel up there, and they're staying there the night before games.
What's this price tag look like to transport the entire USA basketball teams, both men and women's, to the Olympics, pay for lodging and all of those costs?
Yeah, so we estimate that the total cost there is about $15 million. It's like you said, it includes all these different things like travel, chartering, lodging, transport. When you're not inside the Olympic Village, you have to arrange a lot of your own logistics, whether it's getting the practices and games. There's a lot of associated costs. The USOPC helps out in different ways. You know, for one, you know, they have the high performance training center, which Olympic teams train at while they're in Paris, and USA Basketball obviously gets access to that as well. And there are other areas where they contribute or lend resources and this and that. And also the State Department lends some security help, as does the NBA. So the kind of combination of all these things extrapolated together is how we arrive at our estimate.
$15 million, though, is just an enormous amount to send two teams from one country on over to the Olympics. So who's paying this, and is it breaking the bank?
Yeah, so, you know, like I said, part of it runs through the governing body of USA Basketball, and part of it factors in, you know, more intangible contributions that the USOPC and the State Department are, you know, contributing as well, even kind of the NBA's role in it. Also, you know, you've got two teams, you've got the 3-on-3 teams as well, but they're a large traveling party. I mean, you've got teams, support staff, coaches, families. You know, there's a lot of people that travel too, executives, support staff. So the traveling party is big, and also just kind of from a security and privacy standpoint, you kind of want them isolated to a degree as well. So like I said, you know, a lot of it's run through the governing body. USA Basketball is a pretty well-resourced organization. I believe, they were just shy of $80 million in revenue over the last 4 fiscal years, and a large chunk of that comes from its licensing, and marketing agreement with the NBA, which in the last Olympic year netted them in revenue $15.5 million.
The Olympics, is probably one of the biggest events in the world. So what does the booking, the coordination, the logistics look like to travel with Team USA basketball, to book this lodging? Tell us that.
Yeah, so it's a process that starts, years in advance. I spoke with a former director at the USOPC, and they go down, I think it's around 6 years in advance, and they start doing a site visit basically once they know where the next Olympics is going to be, and they lay out scenarios, situations, what would work best for certain teams. In the case of basketball, because USA Basketball is such a kind of resourced organization, it's more of a collaborative process where the USOPC will probably do the initial scouting. They'll have them come down for a site visit. They'll go through options and narrow it down, and then USA Basketball will ultimately make the final decision. And then, there are a lot of little things that go with that. Like, for example, if you're keeping them outside the Olympic Village, you got to arrange busing or other forms of transportation, communication to get them where they need to go, and all these other different factors unfold as you kind of get toward the Olympics. So what this former director had told me is that you basically want to have an understanding by the time the previous games end. So, as soon as Paris ends, they're going to already start looking towards Los Angeles for 2028.
USA Basketball obviously has tremendous star power. They're paying $15 million estimated to bring these teams on over and everything in between. But how does that compare to what other U.S. teams are paying for their teams to compete? Yeah,
to be clear, our $15 million estimate is not solely USA Basketball. It does include the other, factors in from the USOPC and the State Department, the other intangible costs in there as well. Generally speaking, we took a look at weightlifting, we took a look at fencing, and, these were 6-figure investments. In some cases, they are in the Olympic Village. I know in 2021 for Tokyo, USA Weightlifting was not in the Olympic Village, but, they're much smaller costs in terms of what they're outlaying for their Olympic spends, and it's kind of reasonably so. Again, USA Basketball carries some pretty high-profile stars with it, so they have to, make some pretty luxurious arrangements. So yeah.
Talk about that a little more for us. How do the needs of the USA Basketball teams compare to teams like fencing, weightlifting, those lesser-known teams?
USA Basketball features some of the highest-profile athletes on the planet. It features some of the best-earning athletes on the planet. For the men's team, the 12-man roster collectively earned over $600 million for the 12 months ending in May. So you're talking about some very, very famous and very rich individuals. Security is a massive, massive concern. I remember seeing from, years ago when the team was in Beijing for the '08 Olympics, Kobe Bryant was mobbed anywhere he went on the streets. This is an important thing. You obviously want to keep them safe, but there are other factors as well. When you make your own arrangements, you have more control over certain things, whether it's practice and schedule times, having your family around, being able to see family, nutrition, and also it creates a distraction-free environment. Many of the USA Basketball players have talked about, visiting the Olympic Village and interacting with some of their fellow Olympians. And they get mobbed, autographs, pictures. These guys are massive, massive celebrities. And, to some degree, I'm sure it's nice and they enjoy it and meeting other people of kind of, different expertise. But they are there to do a job and they want to win gold, and keeping it distraction-free is probably, a really high priority.
In that vein, do athletes with similar name recognition or star power always opt out of Olympic Village?
I don't know if always is the correct term, but it does happen. Novak Djokovic, for one, who's representing Serbia and is a massive, massive star, he is not staying in the Olympic Village reportedly. So, he's someone who, has earned millions and millions of dollars, is a massive celebrity, and, when you can afford that, and also when you want to eliminate distractions and focus on winning gold, I'm sure that kind of comes as a high priority. I can't definitively say it always happens, but I can say that in a lot of cases where athletes have the means and want to create an environment for them where they can focus, it does happen.
Justin Birnbaum, thanks for coming on in.
Thank you, Brittany.